Words at War.
Marie, you better put the paper down.
I can't, Charlie. The faces of these Detroit race rioters. They're like the boys who sit in my English classes.
Oh, not these hoodlums.
I don't know. This boy pulling the Negro from the car. Why, he could be Hayes or Angelino or Flaherty.
Oh, could he?
Yes. Charlie, something's wrong with the way we teach. With the way I teach.
Put the paper down, Marie. You'll be late.
Yes, you're right. I mustn't be late for school. Not today.
Why today, especially?
Because today we've got to get Hayes before he pulls a Negro from a car in a race riot. We've got to get Flaherty before he becomes a tool of the Christian Front. Charlie, they say that the public school system is the best guarantee of democracy. But I don't know. It isn't fulfilling its mission, Charlie. It isn't. And I'm frightened.
Words at War. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, present a radio adaptation of one of the most thought-provoking books of 1944, Your School, Your Children, by Marie Serkin. We're extremely proud to announce that the part of Marie Serkin will be played by the distinguished American actress, Miss Florence Eldridge.
A sentence has two parts, a subject and a predicate.
Predicate.
That's what I said, Mrs. Serkin. Predicate.
Predicate, Hayes. Predicate.
Okay. Are there subjects and predicates in Silas Marner?
Of course.
In Shakespeare, too?
Why, certainly.
That's what I thought. He don't even write English.
I've taught them for 18 years. Boys called Tony and Philip and George. Girls called Martha and Elizabeth and Sarah. For 18 years in a New York City high school classroom. And together we've discussed and reviewed such things as Paradise Lost and Silas Marner. We've meditated the agreement of subject and verb, pondered the use of the subjunctive, and argued a little about Shakespeare. Today, however, we talked about the recent race riot in Detroit.
I don't know, teacher. You can't trust any of them.
Sure, first thing you know, they pull a knife on you.
Why, it isn't safe to walk along certain streets here in New York.
I don't get all this. They're human, just like us. They didn't start this thing in Detroit. Why, I read in the papers.
People say New York isn't America. I tell them I teach in a New York high school, and I know that New York is America. The boys and girls I teach are like the overwhelming majority of the population, the 90% that doesn't go to college. The skilled mechanics, the stenographers, the dressmakers. I see the changing young faces. I read their compositions. I hear them talk. I see the silly scrawl on the blackboard. Before Pearl Harbor, I ran my fingers over a jagged swastika cut into a desk. And I've got a front seat on a democratic process, the high school classroom, the only place where the great mass of Americans can hear the voice of democracy speak out with passion and authority. And I've seen something happen. What was it? Well, listen. Once, I recall, we were discussing the story of Joan of Arc.
That isn't true, is it?
Well, Hayes, Joan did believe she heard miraculous voices.
Oh, that's not what I mean. That other stuff.
You mean about her leading an army?
Yeah.
Well, that's a matter of history. She was tried and burned at the stake.
Oh, yeah?
That's a fact, Hayes. Don't you believe it?
No, not me.
You don't have to take my word for it, Hayes. You can read about her in your European history book.
No, sir.
But, Hayes, it's a matter of history.
It's propaganda.
That's nonsense, Hayes. It's in the Encyclopedia Britannica.
I've got a right to my opinion, haven't I? I say it's a lot of applesauce.
No fraudulent hero worship for the young. A symptom, the first symptom of the disease. Believe nothing. Debunk everything. When the 3A kids grin over the story of Washington and the cherry tree, bless their little horse sense. Show the great man in his potbelly. Expose his blemishes. That's the method. And if you create a generation of pseudo-sophisticates who are as bleatingly uncritical in their unbelief as a previous generation had been in its belief, why, what's wrong? I'll tell you what's wrong. We've been throwing out the baby with the mud bath. We've been tearing down the halo, but also the saint. So what? I'll tell you what. This happened a few years ago in my English class. The precise time was November 1938, after the anti-Jewish pogroms in Berlin. Hilda was German, so I asked her. She was 16 and blonde and blue-eyed. I asked Hilda, "Did you read the papers, Hilda?"
I did.
Would you like to give the class your opinion?
Sure. It isn't true. Things like that have not happened in Germany.
You did read the papers, didn't you?
Sure.
And you heard it on the radio?
It's propaganda, that's all it is.
But suppose it isn't propaganda. For the sake of discussion, suppose these outrages did take place in Berlin.
Then he must have had a reason.
I see. He. Hilda, if you were in Germany today, would you beat and rob a girl you knew simply because she was Jewish?
Would I? If I was stronger, why not?
Hilda had been born in the United States. Her parents were German, but she was the product of an American school. She wasn't like the Christian fronters and their kind in the school. She was bright. Her IQ was relatively high. Consciously, she was a Nazi. And yet, she didn't worry me as much as the Irish boys who hated England, the Italian boys who felt personally the failure of Italian arms, the other decent boys who read the tabloids and the American first columnists.
The United States is a republic, not a democracy.
What's that, Smith? What did you say?
The United States is a republic and not a democracy.
I was surprised. Of course I was surprised. Joe Smith was not given to fine-spun verbal distinctions. He was hardly the type to go in for profound discussion of the nature of the state. The source of the new truth, as I discovered later, was an editorial in social justice. He hadn't read it himself, but it got around to him the way those things do. I told my husband about it.
Why on earth don't you put these kids straight?
It's not quite so simple, Charlie.
What do you mean it's not simple? That's no answer.
I'm a teacher, Charlie. I'm not supposed to indoctrinate. I'm supposed to encourage objective classroom discussion.
That's bunk.
But don't you see, anything I tell them is propaganda?
Well, show it to them in the books.
The books are propaganda, too.
Oh, for heaven's sakes, what is truth for these kids?
That's it, Charlie. Anything that comes through legitimate channels isn't truth, it's bunk. Truth is in the scurrilous handbills, the yellow journals, the street corner meetings. To many of them, Roosevelt or any government spokesman is a liar.
Good Lord. What's wrong?
Yes. What was wrong? What still is wrong? We in the schools have ourselves encouraged a disposition to question authority and to be dubious about unchecked statements. We did this in order to develop an inquiring mind, in the interest of intellectual freedom. With intelligent students, the results have been to make for a more just evaluation of men and events. But with boys like Hayes, it means...
You know this stuff you get from the Office of War Information? It's just a lot of bourgeois.
This wouldn't be quite so bad if at the same time Hayes didn't proceed to pin his faith in William Dudley Pelley. Yet it's natural for my pupils to label as bunk a report of Nazi massacres in Poland. Normal young people can't credit the reality of such events. However, when these same young people find it easier to credit the enemy version of an incident rather than the explanation given by our own government, something has gone wrong.
Isn't it true that Japan had to attack us in self-defense?
Do you really believe that, Hayes?
A lot of fellas believe that.
A lot of fellows in Germany, perhaps.
No, we're not going to be sucked in by a lot of propaganda, are we, guys?
How do we even know there was an attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yes, that's right. How do we know?
Well, don't you believe the President of the United States?
Oh, don't make me laugh.
Don't you believe Congress?
No, ma'am.
Well, you listen to the radio. Don't you believe H.B. Carltonborn or Lowell Thomas?
That's nothing but propaganda, just to get us into the war.
Yeah, that's right.
Teacher, don't listen to those pills. They don't know the rear from a hole in the ground.
Now, fortunately, this combination of cynicism and stupidity is not common, but it does exist. It exists in our public schools. It isn't a teacher's function to determine how a school should stand in regard to particular controversies. But some issues shouldn't be controversial. They shouldn't be even issues. Things like democracy and the right to live. After all, a school doesn't flourish in a vacuum. It reflects social forces, politics, life around us. How can the school become one of those active forces? I think that's our chief question. Well, let's look at it. This was a special day. The Board of Education had given instructions to observe George Washington Carver Day. And for once, everything went fine.
And he discovered how to make ice cream out of peanuts, and paints and candy out of peanuts, and things like that.
Yes? What did you find out about Carver, Helen?
Well, he could have made a lot of money working for private companies. But he said it was more important that he should teach his people how to grow things.
Why was that, do you think?
Because in the South, the Negroes are poor. George Washington Carver didn't want to help himself. He wanted to show the colored people how they could plant stuff like soybeans and live off it.
Off it, Helen, not off of it.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
You know, I think it's wrong about this here Jim Crow stuff. Well, look at Marion Anderson.
Yeah, and Paul Robeson. He was an All-American.
Sure, and he's got a son who's better than he was. What a halfback.
You're nuts. He's an end, not a halfback.
Halfback.
And
Well, it doesn't matter, boys. What matters is that discrimination is wrong, isn't it?
sure, it stinks.
Oh, Billy, it
It ain't right, ma'am.
ain't?
Isn't right.
Thank you, Billy. It was all very pleasant, and I felt that the Gettysburg Address had left its mark. But the feeling wasn't to last very long. There are a number of colored pupils in the school. Ordinarily, they live at peace with the other boys, but occasionally there's a fracas. This time there was a fight in the lunchroom, and an ugly brawl developed. 2 class periods after the fight, when the school was seething with rumors, I asked my senior English class to write a piece suitable for the school paper. Perhaps something designed to improve white-Negro relations in the school. And I assured them that their sentiments would not be held against them. Their candor startled me.
I think the only way to put a stop to this is to separate the white boys and the colored boys. I don't mean throw one race out of school, but I think they should put one race in the annex.
The only way to stop this is for whites and Negroes to have their own schools, libraries, and communities.
Well, I suggest we send them back to be slaves or isolate them someplace in a far-off island. They don't appreciate their freedom.
First of all, this could be a fight because of discrimination of a race. Everyone should be given a fair break in the school, regardless of race, creed, or color. This is one principle the United States is fighting for. We in this school should fight together to try to...
Yes, their candor startled me. The majority of the students favored segregation. The fine talk about George Washington Carver apparently had not registered. It was not a particular Negro boy against a particular white boy, or vice versa. It was the whites against the blacks, regardless of the right or wrong of the issue. Some of the teachers gathered to talk it over.
I say that we ought to hold a school assembly.
Right. Thrash the business out while the subject's hot.
No, that's wrong.
Sure, it's wrong. The debate would be too emotional.
Oh,
Well,
of
course it'll be emotional.
What do you want to do? Serve it up as cold potatoes? Oh, sir, this is the time to call the assembly.
Yes, I agree.
No, look. All it'll do is stir up trouble. My motto is, let sleeping dogs lie.
Well, I don't agree with that.
And this was the ultimate policy, to let sleeping dogs lie. the immediate difficulty was glossed over, and nothing was done to prevent the repetition of a dangerous incident. This was bad enough in my school, but the situation is worse on the outside. In Negro sections, where overcrowding, unequal opportunity, lack of recreational facilities give the Negro a sense of futility and outrage. Whoever makes the Negro feel that he belongs will win him. The communists have long been preaching their revolutionary dogma in Holland. Their appeal is explicit and understandable. But it's not only the Negro problem. There's also another sore. It exists among the students and among members of the teaching profession.
Haven't you noticed something?
Mm-hmm.
The Jewish teachers get all the fat plums.
Is that so?
Why, certainly, all the soft jobs. Why, I could tell you plenty about how the principal works. Now, one day last month...
And it's just a plain case of anti-Semitism. Every Jewish teacher gets sent to the annex. The Catholics get all the cozy jobs.
Oh, you don't say.
Well, I could tell you plenty if I had a mind. I've known this principal for a long time. He's the kind of a man who do anything.
There's no exaggeration in this. This awareness of racial and religious origins has become indecently acute. It leads to a kind of bookkeeping, which has nothing to do with pedagogy or the welfare of the school. An unofficial quota system, according to which jobs and favors are doled out. Jewish students have become increasingly sensitive. This incident not long ago is typical.
And then he cracked that anti-Semitic joke. I tell you, that teacher is anti-Semitic.
Oh, you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
It was just a wisecrack. There's nothing malicious in it.
Well, I know better. I tell you, he's a Christian fronter.
Oh, you mustn't believe that. Perhaps the remark was a little tactless. But I know that teacher. You're just too suspicious. Well, you're developing a persecution complex.
Oh, excuse me, ma'am. I'll be late for class.
There was a case in one school where a Gentile girl complained that a teacher was making anti-Semitic remarks. Many Jewish students had previously made similar charges. Nothing was done. But now a Gentile girl was making them. And this time the principal investigated.
You say that's what he said?
Yes, sir. Not once, but many times.
What have you to say, sir?
She's making it up out of whole cloth.
Oh, that's not so. You did say it.
Please. No, I don't want this to go any further. Let's have no public repercussions. I want peace and harmony in this school.
But I tell you,
One moment, young lady. The charges have been categorically denied, and I accept that denial. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Very well, you may go. What we need in this school is brotherhood.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I want in my school. Kindness and brotherhood.
Well, that's what we all want.
By the Lord, we're going to have it. Now listen here. There are 3 prizes to give out.
Yes?
Give one to a Protestant, one to a Catholic, and one to a Jew. Everybody gets his share.
Oh, I understand.
And I'd like to see the colored boys get prizes. Let's make them happy. If I can't get brotherhood idealistically, by heaven, I'm going to get it mathematically.
The principal had hit on an inspired formula. Practical pedagogy with no frills. The incident was closed. Though it was not clear whether justice or expediency had prevailed. But there were other incidents.
From the shores of Coney Island, looking out into the sea, stands a kosher air raid warden, wearing V for victory.
Hey, you hear this one? Praise the Lord and trap another Christian.
And so Abby says, Bill, I'll tell you about my brother in the armed forces.
All over the city simultaneously, this is what happened. Yes, the verses were amusing and skillful. So skillful, it was obvious no high school student could have written them. There is danger in publicizing a slander. No matter how brilliantly the falsity of a charge is exposed, the aroma of accusation continues to cling. But there is also a danger in not publicizing a slander, a danger in silence. In some schools, the principals met with the teachers for discussion.
You know, I don't blame some of our teachers for being upset.
Well, neither do I. I tell you, all of our Jewish teachers, in fact, all the Jewish people, have an awful problem facing them.
Yes, as a matter of fact, in America today, there's no problem half as acute as the Jewish problem. Don't you think so, Mr. Principal?
I don't think this is a Jewish problem at all. This is an American problem.
Well, sir, may I ask, sir, why haven't we attempted to solve it? If it's an American problem, why haven't we in America's schools done something to solve it?
In the schools? What can the schools do? This is a problem for the public official, for the home.
But, sir, the duty of the school
One
is to
moment.
help-
Your attention, everyone. Let's get something straight. I run my school the way I know best. I've done everything I can. It's a good school, and I'm not going to have it talked about before the Board of Education. Perhaps this isn't even a proper matter for discussion here. We're in the business of teaching, not indoctrination. I think that's all. The meeting is dismissed.
But isn't it
The
something...
meeting
we
is
have to-
dismissed.
I refuse to be dismissed.
I beg your pardon.
I refuse to be dismissed, sir. This isn't something you can dismiss. We're teachers. We're not teachers for the money in it. We're making less than a fourth-class welder in a shipyard. I'm not griping. I've been at it for 10 years. Yes, 10 years. I used to think there was something holy about it, teacher. Something pretty noble, standing up before a group of youngsters, telling them about good things, true things, fine things, how to grow up decent and straight. After 10 years, I should know better, shouldn't I? I shouldn't be so naive, should I?
This is a school, not a church.
It's both. It's everything. When they're little, we see that they're inoculated against diphtheria and vaccinated against smallpox. Is that all we're supposed to do, keep them from physical harm?
I repeat, the meeting is...
Look, no, wait. You've got to let me finish. Look, after Pearl Harbor, we taught them first aid, didn't we? We taught them how to detect poison gas. We didn't ask their opinion. We told them. Now we've got to tell them about the poison of race and religious hatred. What's the earthly good of winning battles overseas and losing them here at home? What good is it?
The meeting is dismissed.
Yes, the meeting was dismissed. Many meetings were dismissed. And what emerged? Once again, the school showing themselves unable, incapable of meeting a challenge to democracy. Oh, there were surveys, there were investigations, notices were tacked up on the bulletin boards. There was even a little activity, an occasional school assembly devoted to tolerance, an occasional parent-teacher meeting to promote brotherhood, but always voices saying...
No indoctrination.
Let the children decide for themselves.
Democracy's been around since 1776.
Have faith in our youth.
The teacher's business is to teach, not preach.
All over again. It's not cricket for the teacher to impose her views. No indoctrination. Indoctrination is a dirty word. But our enemies are not at all sensitive about dirty words. They don't exhibit any scruples about trying to capture the minds of the young. You can't laugh it away. You can't laugh away the fact that they have no doubts about the teachability of intolerance. Many teachers stopped laughing. They called more meetings.
Well, what do you want us to do? You can't grab them and stuff tolerance down their throats.
No, maybe we're supposed to feed the kids love your neighbor pills.
Sure, 3 times a day.
Oh, wisecracks don't help. Suppose we try teaching democracy.
There it goes again, the old bromide.
Remember, we're teachers. We can't afford to be dogmatic. We mustn't indoctrinate.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Why mustn't we? Is it wrong to take a stand about democratic ideals? What makes you think that the results of appeasement will be any better at Center High than they were at Munich? What makes you think you just have to fold your hands while your students praise William Deadly Pelly and the Christian Front?
Maybe you want to shut them up.
I want to answer them.
Well, they've got a right to their opinion.
Have they? Well, have they? Suppose Jimmy gives you his mature opinion that 2 and 2 makes 5. That's his opinion, isn't it? But you're not going to let him get away with it, are you? No, you're going to tell him where he's wrong. Listen, young people need direction. They don't go in for subtlety. You don't teach them with mirrors.
Well, maybe you're right. But what do we do about it?
That's the trouble. I don't know. There ought to be a plan. There ought to be.
Well, there is a plan. In Springfield, Massachusetts, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there is a plan. It's called the Springfield Plan. A plan against bias. A plan against prejudice. A plan for dramatic, democratic education. And it works.
To provide opportunities for democratic self-government.
To study the weakness and the strength of our democracy.
To establish a positive working philosophy based on democratic principles.
To evaluate one's own prejudices and bias.
To study public opinion in a democracy and to understand how it is influenced.
To teach students how to weigh evidence, how to reach conclusions objectively, and how to distinguish between fact and opinion.
And we don't depend on the zeal of a few crusading spirits. It's in the school's daily program plan.
Right beside arithmetic, foreign languages, and general science.
Every hour, every day, every week, every semester. It's not hot air.
The Springfield plan works.
Yes, it works. In Springfield and Pittsburgh and wherever the plan is in operation, democracy is not a 4th of July phrase, but an integral part of the curriculum. It's not a notice on the bulletin board. It's not a speech before the Parent-Teachers Association. In Springfield, they are no longer afraid to attack a pernicious influence, whether it comes from the home or the streets or the playground. The Springfield plan works. It works in Springfield. It works in Pittsburgh. It can work in any enlightened community where men and women are willing to roll up their sleeves and say, let's cut out the pussyfooting. Let's start being realistic in teaching our youngsters the meaning and worth of the only political ideal that really works for the people. Honest, fearless, small d democracy. In a few weeks, our schools will hold their graduation ceremony. The boys will put away their sweaters and their lumberjackets and wear neatly pressed suits. And the girls will look pretty in their party dresses and their bright corsages. The color guard will march in with a flag, and the graduates will stand and make the pledge to justice and liberty for all. And after the speeches and the diplomas, Thompson will go into the Coast Guard. Riley will join the Marines. DeMarco and Feigenbaum will be accepted as aviation cadets. And they'll come back on their first furloughs, proud in their uniforms. And in this time of life and death for the individual, this time of life and death for a great nation and a great vision, these boys will be more precious to us. And we'll remember once again that democracy is the respect for the worth of every individual. And we'll remember once again that the American school must become the school of an American faith. Yes, that's the task. That's the challenge. How are we going to meet it?
Thank you, Miss Eldridge, for a most eloquent performance. Tonight on Words at War, the National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, has presented a dramatization based on Marie Serkin's book, Your School, Your Children, starring the distinguished American actress, Miss Florence Eldridge. The script was by Morton Wishengrad, music by William Meader, production, Garnet Garrison. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company. Words at War.
Stop him! Stop him! Fire! Billy!
Stop! Halt! Or I'll shoot! So, trying to give a signal to the enemy, huh? This'll teach you, you swine!
On, stop it, you fool, you kill him.
And what's wrong with that? He's a traitor. He set fire to the haystack. Look, it's shaped like an arrow and points to the factory.
You fool, if you kill him now, how are we going to find out who his accomplices are? In the stomach. Why couldn't you have shot him in the leg, you fool? Why don't you use your brain?
I was only trying to do my duty. I saw...
Never mind what you saw. Let's get him to the hospital immediately. There they come. They saw the signal they'll be back tomorrow night. And then it'll be all over for us. We must get to Herr Bomber at once.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another of the most widely discussed programs in America, Words at War, dramatizing the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. Tonight, Albert Maltz's new novel about Germany, The Cross and the Arrow, dramatized for radio by Ben Kagan.
Herr Baumer, I'm Commissar Kerr, Gestapo.
Yes, come in, Commissar. I've been expecting you. Now I'll give you the background of the case. We make medium tanks here. Turn them out like rolls. We used to be in Dusseldorf, but the bombings got too hot, so we were moved 7 months ago. As you'll see tomorrow, we're situated in a wood. All around us is farming community. Our camouflage people have done a first-rate job. In 8 months, there have been British planes over here, but always after another objective. But tonight, a worker here tried to signal the plane.
How?
My dear Commissar, I have no intention of keeping it a secret from you. On the east edge of the factory, there's a farm. The owner is a widow, Frau Ling. Her hay has recently been cut. The saboteur named Wegler piled the hay in an arrow pointing toward the factory. When the planes came over, he touched it off. It so happens our SS men were close by on patrol. The woman Ling yelled. We got there in time to douse the fire before it burned too long.
Do you think the British plane spotted the fire?
I don't know, but we have to act on that possibility. Naturally, we'll take all protective measures. But meanwhile, if they didn't see the arrow, there's danger that the scum working with Wegler will try again. And that's why you're here.
Do you know for a fact that the saboteur is part of a group?
No, I assume it.
Was there anyone with him tonight?
Not that we know.
You've examined him?
He's in the hospital with a bullet in his gut. Who knows if he'll ever be able to talk to him.
Bad. Well, I want Wegler's record, of course, and the record of every friend of his in the factory. What about the farm woman?
She and Wegler were going to be married. That's how Wegler came to be on her farm in the first place.
The woman who betrayed him?
Yes.
What reason?
I haven't talked to her. There hasn't been time. Besides, she was hysterical. She ought to be ready for questioning now.
Good. Well, by the way, when do you suppose we'll be able to talk to Wegler?
I don't know. He's still unconscious. I've left instructions with Dr. Soder at the hospital to let me know as soon as he comes out of the anesthetic. It seems the doctor isn't sure yet whether Wegler will live.
Do you know of any reason why Wegler would have wanted to see the factory destroyed by the British? Was there any personal motivation?
None. As a matter of fact, only yesterday he was awarded a medal for being the best type of German worker. And he had every reason for hating the British. His wife was killed in an air raid, and his son died in the Battle of Narvik.
I see. All right, Herr Baumer, and I shall proceed at once.
Nurse, what is Wegler's temperature now?
99, Dr. Soder.
Up a few points. Take his pulse every half hour, nurse.
Really now, as though every hour weren't enough.
Damn it, woman, will you do as I say? We must bring him out of the ether quickly.
Yes, sir. It's not that I mind, only I don't like to see you lose your calm. A doctor should be calm. What happens to a patient when a doctor isn't calm?
He dies. He's buried, and the worms enjoy him. Soon it will happen to you, nurse. Now every half hour. Remember, I want you to call me at once if his pulse goes higher than 101.
Yes, sir.
The drip infusion is to continue. You might be putting some wet gauze on his lips.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Now you take care of him properly. He must be in condition to talk by morning. Unless he dies first.
What will happen? I'm waking up. I've been asleep. No. I've been sick. There's a pain in my belly. Yes, I remember now. The elite guard. The flash of moonlight on the rifle barrel. I must be in the factory hospital. I'm wounded and trapped. As soon as they find out I'm conscious, they'll be after me to talk. Baumer will come. He will want to know who my accomplices were. He will want to know why I signaled the British planes. They will force me to talk. There is a solution. I must kill myself, and quickly. The only thing I have to do is rip off the bandage. But then, how will I know? How will I know if the British planes saw the arrow? I must know. I must remain alive until tomorrow night.
Well, nurse?
He hasn't stirred. Pulse 105. No septicemia.
Peculiar. Very peculiar.
Could it be a cranial injury, Doctor?
I don't see any signs of it. But I don't quite understand this extended unconsciousness. Look at him. He lies there like a log. Doesn't even stir. Nurse, I want you to look at him every 15 minutes. And call me the instant he comes to.
So, they think I have a skull injury. Good. The only thing I have to do is lie like a log, as the doctor expressed it. If only the throbbing in the belly would stop. It will be hard this way. No mistake about that. But it must be done. Not a sound shall escape from my lips. Not a sound. Dear God, make the British planes come. Make them come tonight. And help me think of something. I must not give in to this pain.
Rowling, come in. Sit down, please. You have my deepest admiration. What you did tonight earns the gratitude of every German. My name is Commissar Kerr.
What about the man Wegler, Kommissar?
He's in the hospital here.
He's all right?
They operated. We don't know yet.
What will happen if he gets well?
He'll be executed for treason, of course.
So? Good. Very good.
Still, it must be hard on you.
On me? Why should I care?
You were going to be married, weren't you?
I? No such thing. A complete mistake, sir. To him? Ah.
I see. Well, tell me what happened tonight.
Well, I was in bed. Something woke me up. I don't know what. Then I saw him through the window running in the fields. So I yelled to him. The window was open, but he didn't stop. I could see that he was doing something with the hay, but I didn't know what. I ran outside. He wouldn't talk to me, and when I tried to stop him, he knocked me down. Then, when he began to pour the kerosene on the hay, I understood what he was doing. I saw the way he had the hay piled, I mean. I ran toward the fire and yelled. He ran after me with a pitchfork. He wanted to kill me. That's all.
Nothing more that you can think of? Anything he ever said that would be a clue?
No.
Oh, you haven't been frank with me. I think I know why. For a simple, honest woman like you, the Gestapo commissaire seems a strange man. Now, you mustn't be afraid. I, the Gestapo commissaire, am relying on you to help me. Now, you know Wegler, and you can tell me about him. You were going to be married to him.
No, I told you before. He was an acquaintance.
Very good. You want me to consider your link with the traitor? Very good, I will. Some reason you're denying what everybody knows. That you knew Wegler, that you were lovers, that you intended to be married.
It's a lie.
For goodness sake, woman. It was you who called the guards and saved the factory. Why are you lying now? Perhaps there'll have to be 2 customers for the axe. An axe isn't particular, you know. The head rolls into the basket just the same.
Please, please.
Out with it, woman, and I want the truth.
I was so afraid. I didn't know what might happen to me.
Nothing will happen to you.
I was going to marry him. He was at my house tonight. Then he left. I thought to go home to the barracks. I went to my room. Then I saw him like I told you. The rest is just how I say.
Why did he do it? That's what I want to know. Why?
I don't know. He told me he was going to do something. Something important, he said. I asked him what, but he wouldn't tell. He said we were both guilty because of the pole.
Guilty? What does that mean?
That's what he said. It sounds crazy to me.
Who's the Pole?
On my farm, a prisoner. He works for me now. I bought him.
Wegler was mixed up with the Pole, eh?
No, he couldn't have been. I've only had the pole since 2 nights ago. There was no time.
Oh, in that case, why did he say he was guilty?
That's what I don't know. I've been thinking all night. I think he was crazy.
Yes? Why do you think so?
To do a thing like that. He had no reason.
How do you know he had no reason?
Oh, he was always patriotic.
You suspected nothing? He never said anything?
You think I wouldn't have reported the slightest thing?
Did he ever criticize the party leaders?
Oh, no, sir.
You mean he didn't even criticize Labor Front leader Baumer? Wegler wanted to work on your farm, didn't he? What did he say when he was refused permission?
He hardly ever spoke of it. He just told me that he was called for the army.
Oh, he didn't want to go to the army, surely. He's no youngster.
He only told me tonight. I don't know what he felt. He was just talking crazy, like I said.
So you think Wegler was crazy, and that's why he set off the signal. He had no accomplices.
Yes, sir, he must have been crazy to do a thing like that. That's the only explanation I know.
Hello, Soda. This is Baumer. Is Wegler conscious yet?
No.
I want you to wake him.
I'm sorry,
Soda,
but...
you're not cooperating. In an hour, I face a meeting with the superintendent. I've got to see Wegler before that. Why can't you use smelling salts or give him some drug?
It's this way, Balmer. I might give him a strychnine injection,
Would
but
that bring him to consciousness?
It might, but...
Give it to him.
Just listen a moment, please. I promise you I'll do as you say, but listen to the facts first.
I'm listening.
The strychnine might bring him to consciousness, but it might also kill him.
I'll take a chance. He's no good to me this way.
But he might die before he's had a chance to talk, and
Look here, Soder. I have an appointment for 8 sharp. The entire factory's to meet. By that time, I want what's behind this business of Wegler's if I have to tear it out of his guts with pliers. You hear me?
All right, Balmer.
At 8 o'clock. No later.
He's still unconscious, Doctor.
Incredible. Well, we'll try the strychnine.
Oh, they're going to give me a stimulant. Well, it won't do any good, Doctor. I'm going to die tonight, not before. And you won't get anything out of me. Go ask Frau Ling. She'll tell you. Frau Ling, my betrothed, who betrayed me. If not for her, the arrow of burning hay would have blazed up unhampered. Yet I don't hate Bertha Ling. She was a good woman. She loved me. Curious how we first met.
Well, so you're awake at last. Now get out of my house, and quick, or I'll call the police. Well, are you going?
If you please, how did I get here?
You broke in like a robber, that's how.
Broke in?
I suppose you don't remember. I didn't mean it. I was drunk. My mind's a blank. Oh, yes, I know you men. Pigs, every one.
Please, I'm so sorry. I'll leave right away. Only tell me where I am.
In my farmhouse, that's where. You're from the factory, I suppose. The factory's down the road. The pity you couldn't land there where you belong instead of coming here and breaking things like a madman.
Breaking things? What did I break?
There, the glass.
Oh, well, don't worry. I'll pay you for it.
And the dog. Will you pay me for him, too?
What do you mean?
My dog that you killed last night.
I? How did I kill him?
How should I know how you killed him? You did. Then you came into my kitchen and broke the glass and spread yourself out on the floor and slept here all night.
I'll pay. Of course I'll pay. I'm an honest man. If you say I killed your dog, I'll make good. The next day, I went back to the farmhouse and paid. Then I went to her farm again. We talked.
Where do you come from, Herr Wegler?
Düsseldorf.
Ah, Düsseldorf. You have a family, I suppose?
No. I had a boy and a wife, Howling. My boy died in the attack on Narvik. My wife was killed in a bombing. And now I'm alone.
Ah, I hate the war, too. The war killed my husband. It's 2 years now, and it's almost a year that they took my son, Rudy. He was only 17.
When I was 17, I was in the last war.
You? Oh, you're a fine man, Herr Wegler. But why do you have to drink like a pig? Why do you turn yourself into such a beast?
I never drank before. I don't like to get drunk even now. It's just that, you see, it's lonely in the factory, and when I think of my wife, I can't stand to think of my wife. I see her lying on the ground with her face all cut up, her arms cut off, body looking like some butcher who dug his knife into her. Makes me want to kill somebody.
I understand, Herr Wegler. I understand. Pulse 101, Doctor. Do you think we'll really have an air raid tonight?
I don't know. It's possible. Balmer tells me they have already begun to build fortifications, and some guns are coming in this morning. Syringe, please.
Yes, I can see them from here. Looks as if the whole factory's out there digging. Here you are, Doctor.
I must hold still. Mustn't move. Think of something else. That night in front of the farmhouse, when Bertha and I discussed our coming marriage.
Ah, what a night. Smell the air, Willie.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Listen to me, Bertha. I want to tell you something.
I am listening.
Let's get married.
Oh, there you go again. I told you we must get permission from my son, Rudy. Legally, he owns this farm, and he must approve.
But what if he says no? Anyway, it's crazy for two grown-up people to ask a boy of 18 for permission to marry.
He won't say no.
Then why don't we get married now?
That I can't do, Willie. After all, my own son. In decency, I have to let him know beforehand. I've just explained the law to you. We're hereditary peasants.
I understand the law. But what if your boy does say no?
He won't. I promise.
You don't answer me, Bertha. I say, let's get married. You think I need this farm to support you? I don't.
Oh, you. Like a phonograph record. Good night, my phonograph record. I'm going to sleep now. And you'd better go to sleep, too. And stop worrying over your stupid worries, whatever they are.
Worry? Why? Who worries?
You do. And it's no use lying to me. I wish you could get another job. That terrible hammer you work with all day. It's enough to drive a man crazy.
You know, Bertha, I've started thinking the same thing myself. I don't like the hammer so much anymore. It seems harder now.
Well, never mind, Willie. Soon we'll get married, won't we? And then you'll come and live on the farm.
That's what I was thinking. For another little while, Bertha, I guess I can't stick it out. And then he came home. Her son, Rudy.
You ready for the coffee now?
Yes, Mama. Bring it in. Ah, it's a wonderful meal, Mama. Hey, Willie?
Certainly was, especially the champagne. You certainly got a lot of nice things in France, Rudy.
Those sweaters and the night dresses and the perfume.
Yes.
Rudy said he picked them up for practically nothing.
You know who had it lucky? The first soldier that went into France. He used to spread butter on candy bars, they told me. Stores were half cleaned out by the time I arrived.
How rich those Frenches must have been.
Yeah, rich and fat and stupid. French always used to boast of their culture. What culture? I know more than barbarians. Have their minds on good living and money. But this champagne they make it. Some stuff. Hey, Willie.
Rudy, your mother has written to you. We want to get married. I assure you.
Oh. So you want to get married, eh, Willie? Well.
Rudy, please say yes now. You're leaving tonight.
Yes, I'm leaving tonight. Leaving my farm. Sure, why not get married? What do I care? Likely send me to the front and I get killed anyway.
No, Rudy, don't say things like that.
But listen, I want one thing understood. I run the farm. What I say goes.
Absolutely. I give you my hand on it.
Oh, isn't it wonderful, Willie? Now you'll be able to leave your job in the factory and come to work on the farm. What you wanted all your life, Willie. Oh, I can hardly believe it.
Bertha, wake up. I have to talk to you.
Oh, Willie. What's the matter? Did anything happen to Rudy?
No, he took the train. Bertha, everything's turned rotten. You and I, we want to make a good life together, yes. I used to think we could live on this farm like it was an island away from everybody. And now we can't.
Why? What happened?
Listen, tonight we had a celebration.
So?
It's so nice to drink champagne, to smoke decent cigarettes. And Rudy, your son, brought you presents, perfume, nightgowns, a sweater.
And what of that?
I'll tell you how Rudy got them, Bertha. Because Rudy told me when he was drunk. She was a rich French woman, Rudy said. She lived outside a small town. She had an estate with a large farm. The day before the trucks were to come and take away the grain, she burned down the farm. So Rudy was sent with the others to arrest her. They didn't wait for anyone to open the door. They broke it down. The woman ran out of bed in her nightgown, a pink one like the one you're wearing. Then Rudy's corporal, who was in charge, told the woman she was under arrest. She didn't say anything. Only she asked the corporal if she could have a few minutes to get dressed. He told her yes. Then, when she went into her room, the corporal called the men together. Listen, he said. This is how Rudy told me. That woman is going to be shot this morning. Why should we let her go to her death unhappy? You saw for yourself. She's all right. Will we have some fun with her? So
They all lined up.
Stop
and
it! Stop it!
Then, before they took her away, the soldiers went to her closet. The corporal told them, help yourselves, boys. So that's how a German mother got a fine sweater and 2 nightgowns and a bottle of perfume.
Oh, what do you want me to say, Willie? It isn't women who make war.
You don't understand, Bert. It's not just war itself. It's that Rudy wasn't ashamed. Rudy was proud. Rudy was proud. Listen to me, Bertha. There's rottenness here. When Rudy was telling me his story, laughing the way he did, I wanted to kill him. This rottenness I won't live with. I won't live with it. I'm a decent man.
Your name is Baronsky?
Yes, sir. Stefan Bironsky.
Now then, Baronsky, you have any knowledge of Wegler's motivation for setting that fire? Did he have any Confederates that you know about? Did you see anyone with him?
No, sir. He himself alone came to the barn and talked to me.
Wegler spoke to you? What about?
He wanted me to escape, sir. But I wouldn't.
You're lying.
No, sir, I swear it. He came to me in the barn.
Go on.
He spoke to me through the little window. First he gave me a cigarette, but I told him it was forbidden for me to smoke. Then he said he would write a letter for me to my home, but I said it was forbidden, sir.
Come to the escape.
Yes, sir. Then he said he would break open the barn doors for me any night. He said he would bring me clothes and some money and his own police card, sir.
So, why didn't you escape?
It's forbidden to escape, sir.
I see. And did he tell you why he wanted to do all this for you?
No, sir. Just that he wanted to help me, sir.
Did you know him someplace before?
No, sir.
Did he ever speak to you before 2 nights ago?
No, sir.
Why did he want to help you then? For your good looks?
I don't know, sir.
You don't know. No, of course you don't know. He was crazy, that's why. Crazy as a bedbug.
I tried to tell you, Bertha. I tried.
Willie, it's all arranged. I've written to the labor front leader in your factory, and in a few days you'll be transferred to the farm. Well, darling, don't you have anything to say?
Bertha, who is in the barn?
In the barn? Why, a Pole, of course. He's to work for me. 17 marks I had to pay.
Bertha, how can you? How can you even say it? You bought a man, Bertha. You paid money for a human being.
But these are prisoners. Besides, I'm a farmer, Willie. You're not. If I don't meet my quotas, they'll take away my farm. You want that?
I want you to take back the Pole.
Take him back? Are you crazy, Willie? I already paid for him. Should I return the Pole and let my hay rot?
Yes.
Oh, sure. How easy it is for you to talk. It isn't your farm. What do you care?
But I do care. Bertha, darling, take the Pole back. Please, I beg you. I'll work for you at night, on Sundays, when I'm transferred. Bertha, listen to me.
You listen to me. This is your responsibility, too. We're to be married, remember. And I'm not to blame for the war. I didn't start it.
No, I don't really blame you, Bertha. You just didn't understand. When you betrayed me, you were only doing something that's been bred into you.
Well, Willie, what did the labor front leader say? When can we get married?
Bertha, I'm not to be transferred to the farm.
You're not? Oh, well, in a few months, maybe.
Bertha, they've called me for the army.
Oh. Well, never mind. The war will end soon.
Bertha, I'm not going to their army. I have something to do.
What do you have to do? What are you talking about?
I have something to do. A deed.
You don't make sense, Willie.
It's like, I mean, what Rudy did, you see. I'm guilty, too. It's like I brought you the sweater myself. I've been part of it. I make tanks. And you've been part of it, too, with the farm and the Pole. We're all guilty.
Willie, I think you're drunk.
We're swine, Bertha. They've turned us all into swine. Now they want me to volunteer for the army. It's more war they want, more killings and more sweaters and more people to sell in the village at 17 marks. I won't do it. I stop here. Right now I stop. Somebody has to say no to them.
Well, what'll you do?
Bertha, will you help me?
Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're tired. What are you doing? What are you doing with the kerosene? Willie, come back here. Willie!
wonder what time it is. It's dark. Soon they'll come. Dear God, let them come. Don't let them go anyplace else. It must be here tonight.
Hans, you better hurry or you'll miss the execution. Hans, come on.
What's all the excitement? Oh, they finally found out who set off the fire. It was the Pole who worked on the woman's farm, and he's being executed. He confessed. Oh? I heard it was Begler. Well, confidentially, I heard it too, but how would it look for the morale of the factory if they told us Begler did it?
Yes, that makes sense.
Of course. So now they're executing the Pole, and the whole incident will soon be forgotten.
Unless the British planes saw the signal.
Yeah, that would be too bad. Well, let's go watch the fun, huh?
Let them come. Let them come. Blast the factory. Kill them all. Wipe them out. They're here. They're here. Now all this will be wiped out. All their rottenness. My signal was seen. Now, the only thing I have to do is rip off the bandage. It will be all over. My deed has been accomplished. Maybe there will be others who will follow. Blast them, Britishers. Blast them.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you Albert Maltz's novel, The Cross and the Arrow, adapted for radio by Ben Kagan. The cast included Louis Van Rooten as Herr Wegler, Dorothy Francis as Frau Ling, Ed Begley as Kommissar Kerr, and Reese Taylor as Herr Baumer. The music was arranged and played by William Meader. Production, Garnet Garrison. Next week, Words at War will present the radio dramatization of the Scapegoats of History, based upon a YMCA pamphlet by Kenneth M. Gould, and the history of bigotry in the U.S. by Gustavus Myers. This series of programs is brought to you in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime by the National Broadcasting Company and the independent radio stations associated with the NBC network. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company. Words at War.
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, presents another of the most widely discussed programs in America, Words at War, dramatizing the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. Tonight's Words at War program is a Christmas story based on two books, Kenneth Gould's Scapegoats in History and History of Bigotry in the United States by Gustavus Myers.
For today's sermon, our text is the Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 2, verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and set forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, In Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted, because they are not. Is there a man among us who does not, in this Christmas season of goodwill and brotherhood among men, condemn this slaughter of innocent children by a ruthless king? No, I am confident that Herod's crime against humanity will rankle in the hearts and minds of just men forever. And yet, the slaughter of the innocents was not the first such act of persecution, nor has it been the last. There have always been scapegoats among us, hated, distrusted, persecuted. It is of these that I wish to speak to you today. Scapegoats in history. The original scapegoat described in the book of Leviticus was an animal called Azazel.
Come on, move! Move, you stubborn old beast! You're keeping the high priest waiting.
Place him on the altar.
Yes, sire.
Witness, O Lord, that we are gathered in holy convocation on this day of atonement, in the 10th day of the 7th month, and with penitence and sorrow we confess the iniquities and sins of the people, and transfer those sins and iniquities to the beast Azazel. Amen.
The Azazel was a goat, and the ritual was common among the people of Israel, the Babylonians, and the Hittites. Centuries later, distorted religious sentiment produced the human scapegoat.
Oh, please. No, please, have mercy. I have done nothing. I am an old man. I will die.
Die you must. It is ordained by the gods.
Out with hunger, in with wealth. Out with hunger, in with health.
That was a ceremony performed annually by the ancient Greeks and called the expulsion of hunger. When the custom became refined, the Leucadians once a year hurled a criminal into the sea as a public sacrifice to Apollo. In Marseille, a poor man was dressed in holy garments and stoned to death to avert the plague. In Rome and Sparta, the sacrificial offerings were beautiful young virgins. All this was done for a well-recognized purpose: to benefit the community, to drive out famine and disease, to prevent the loss of crops or cattle, to atone for sin, with the community scapegoat taking the rap. The practice grew unmolested, and rulers soon found it to their advantage to let popular prejudices concentrate on unpopular groups, the minorities.
You know what I heard today? It was told to me by a very high official of the Senate. It's the foreigners who are responsible for the flood, the Phoenicians.
They are?
The sooner we get rid of them, the better. There's no food and people are starving, and all because of them, because of their magic.
Then they should be driven out.
Or better still, sacrificed to the gods.
Yes, sacrifice to the gods. Why wait? Let's go to the high priests, spread the news throughout the city, and tell the people of the crime of the Phoenicians.
It is done, sire. The news is spreading throughout the city like wildfire. By tonight, there won't be a Phoenician left alive.
Good work, Delenius. You have done your job well. This is your reward.
By By such means, it was easy to distract the attention of the public from the real shortcomings of the group in power, or to cause the masses to forget their own miseries. It was also easy to arouse fear and hatred and suspicion of those who differed from the rank and file. Shrewd manipulators of mob psychology stimulated this fear and hatred by means of subtle propaganda and by creating scapegoats.
The mob is getting restless, Pilot. They demand a decision.
Very well. Any decision they shall have. I wash my hands of the whole business. Announce that I release Barabbas and deliver Jesus unto them to be crucified.
It was after the death of Jesus that the word scapegoat began to have a broader meaning. Organized persecution of races, groups, minorities, and creeds spread throughout the world, took root in every continent, festered in the hearts and souls of the people. This is the long history of man's inhumanity to man, a history of bloody terror, of oppression, of bigotry, which has come to us through the ages. Listen, then. Listen to these scapegoats cry out from their martyred graves. In the early days of the Roman Empire, the Christians were the scapegoats. In 64 A.D., Rome was destroyed by a great fire.
Citizens of Rome, listen to the words of Emperor Nero. The fire which consumed Rome was started by members of the upstart groups calling themselves Christians. For this outrageous crime against the people of Rome, all Christians will be arrested and the guilty persons executed.
In 112 A.D., there was an earthquake.
It has been discovered that the earthquake was brought about by the Christians. For this outrageous crime against the people of Rome, all Christians will be arrested and the guilty persons executed.
2 years later, the empire suffered from famine and pestilence.
It's the Christians who are responsible for this outrageous crime against the people of Rome. Feed them to the lions.
The climax of the long and fiery ordeal came in the reign of Diocletian in 284 A.D.
Fire! The Nicodemic Palace is on fire! Run for your lives!
The Christians, they are the ones who are responsible. They're the ones who started the fire.
But we have no proof, sire.
Proof? Since when is it necessary to have proof against the Christians? I say they started the fire. It was a conspiracy against the empire myself, and they shall pay for this conspiracy. They shall pay for it with their blood.
Arrest all the Christians! Bring them to justice!
The terrible persecution that began that day spread throughout the empire. Christians were imprisoned, tortured, and in some towns the entire population massacred. This anti-Christian campaign lasted until 311 A.D. 12 years later, Emperor Constantine accepted Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire, and the persecution of the Christians stopped. Human nature, unfortunately, is slow to learn from its own experience. Minority groups sometimes escape from their prison of prejudice and increase in number and influence. In such changing circumstances, they in turn become intolerant of other groups and treat them as scapegoats for their own ills. And so it was with the early Christian church when it fell prey to the poison of power. This Christmas season, the voice of history rings out in accusation.
These are the crimes the Christian church perpetrated in the Dark Ages, when the heretic was the scapegoat, because he was believed to be in league with the devil and a trafficker of black magic. Listen well, for the list is long and bloody, and the names are well known to you. It includes the imprisonment, torture, or execution of such men as Galileo, Roger Bacon, John Huss, the Spanish Inquisition, the murder of Joan of Arc, the massacre of St. Bartholomew, the burning of Ridley, Latimer, and Cranmer at the stake in the days of bloody May.
These are the dark stains upon the pages of a glorious history. Stains which spread and multiplied as new religious groups, sects, and denominations won first toleration and then control in the countries of Europe and America. First, the Protestants took their turn, the Calvinists and the Puritans, fleeing from religious intolerance themselves, yet not believing that others were entitled to freedom in the worship of God.
Hear ye, for insolent and contemptuous behavior against authority and for publicly insinuating opinions and heterodoxies that transgress Puritan laws, Roger Williams is hereby expelled from the colony of Massachusetts Bay. Hear ye, Anne Hutchinson is hereby expelled from the colony of Massachusetts Bay. Mary Dyer, a Quaker, is to be hanged on Boston Common.
These were Christian acts, promulgated by Christian ministers of God, ministers who held powers so complete that church and state were practically identified as one. In the year 1692, the hectic hysteria flamed up in Salem. In that year in Salem, there was a West Indian Negro servant called Tituba, who both terrified and enchanted her big-eyed listeners with the voodoo spells of her ancestors.
And so the medicine man gave her this potion I'm making up now. And what do you think happened? She became the most beautiful girl in the world. And the men, they all came to see her from far and wide. And pretty soon the prince came too. And the prince, he said to her, I've been in love with you all my life. Will you marry me?
Oh, Tituba. How thrilling.
Thus Tituba entertained her friends. And although the potions never did anybody any good, neither did they do anybody any harm. Until one day when those voodoo stories of Tituba came to the attention of Cotton Mather, a minister of God, who immediately brought the case to the attention of Governor Sir William Phipps, a representative of the people.
Witchcraft. That's what this is, Governor Phipps. The woman is a witch, possessed of the devil. She's a menace to our community, a menace to the people and the Puritan Church.
What do you want me to do, Reverend Mather?
Hang her. If thy right eye offend thee and cause thee to stumble, pluck it out, cast it from thee. Unless you hang that witch, she will spread the disease of a witchcraft throughout Salem. She will infect the entire community.
Very well. I shall appoint a special court to try her, with instructions to carry out the execution.
And so Tituba was hanged.
No! No!
And then there came others, young girls and old women.
No! No!
All tried by a special court, all declared to be possessed of the devil and executed for the welfare of the community. Before this flame of insanity burnt itself out, 19 innocent persons had been hanged, and one pressed to death. Yes, even to America was carried the hate and prejudice and fear that was born thousands of years ago in the jungles of Africa and the rituals of the primitive races and the warped mind of King Herod. And as we began to grow as a nation, so did the scapegoats multiply. In the 17th century, the hatred was directed against the Catholics.
There is no room in the colonies for the Pope and the Romish Church. Popery and Christianity are as dissimilar as day and night, as foreign as Christ and Antichrist, as contradictory as God and the devil.
thundered the Puritan pulpits, and the cry was echoed throughout America.
Down with the papists! Down with the Catholics! Down with the papists! Down with the Catholics! Down with the papists!
In no colony except Rhode Island could a Catholic vote or enjoy civil and religious rights. In New York, an act was passed confiscating property of Jesuits and other Catholic priests. And during the French and Indian War, Catholics were charged with fomenting Negro Indian uprising against the colonial governments. This wave of anti-Catholic sentiment died down with the Revolution and the adoption of the Constitution with its guarantee of freedom of worship. Yet hate and prejudice did not die. It burned and festered in the hearts of men. And in the middle of the 19th century, it was directed against the Irish.
This is an Irish invasion. They brought with them nothing but pauperism, slums, corruption, and crime. They are responsible for our unemployment and panics, depriving Native Americans like yourselves of jobs. They are the ones who've been responsible for lowering the wage scale. And furthermore, and as if this weren't enough, most of the Irish who come here are clannish, unassimilable, and downright half-witted.
This was the beginning of the many nativist, nationalist, and anti-foreign movements that have periodically marked and plagued American life. The resentment soon became linked with religious bigotry. Bigotry turned to hate, and another anti-Catholic crusade was underway. Anti-Catholic publications and societies sprang up to keep the country safe for Protestant Americanism. Among them,
the Order of United American.
The United American Mechanics.
The Order of the Star-Spangled Banner.
The propaganda of these organizations soon inflamed Native Americans to direct action.
Go back where you came from, you dirty Irish Catholics!
In 1829, mobs attacked the homes of Boston Catholics and stoned them for 3 days. The Irish section of Charleston, Massachusetts was devastated. In 1834, an Ursuline convent was burned to the ground. And in the years 1835 to 1845, violent riots broke out in Philadelphia and New York.
Get those dirty Irish out of here! Send them all back to Ireland!
Later, there followed the Know Nothing Party with their war cry of rum, Romanism, and rebellion, and the American Protective Association, all serving but one purpose: to spread hate, fear, and distrust among the people of America. In 1867, shortly after the Civil War, there appeared another organization, using different methods but producing the same results.
Kill the Negroes! Burn down their houses!
The Ku Klux Klan, standing for white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant supremacy, standing also for murder and pillage and terror. Created at first to combat the carpetbag governments of newly freed Negroes, broadening its field of hate and persecution later to include foreigners, as well as native-born Jews, Catholics, labor, radicals, liberals. Existing even now, this Christmas season, as I speak to you, waiting to go into action again when conditions for mass hate are ripe and the blind among us willing to follow their program. Let us examine now the scapegoats in our midst. Let us ask ourselves this question: what does it mean to be a Negro in the United States today?
I can answer that question. I am a Negro, born in America, lived in America all my life. It's a good country, too, created by God and by man so that people can live together in peace and freedom. I figure, according to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it belongs to me as well as to anybody. But sometimes I wonder. Sometimes I wonder about a lot of things which make me an outcast in the country where I was born. I wonder why, in many states, I can't vote like the white people do. I wonder why I have to live in the slum areas and pay exorbitant rents for fire traps. I wonder why I have to go to different schools, sit in designated sections of buses and trains, go to different hotels and restaurants. I wonder why I can't get a job at wage rates comparable to those of other Americans, why I can't get into certain unions, why many defense industries won't hire me. I wonder why, in time of war, a German prisoner is more respected by some white men than myself. And why, in time of war, the Army and the Navy have to have special Negro units. I wonder about justice, different for the black man and the white, and about lynchings created to strike terror in our hearts and keep us where we belong, on the bottom rung of the social and economic ladder. Yes, I wonder about a lot of things in this land of mine, in this country which gave me life and won't let me live to enjoy it. Sometimes I get mad. I get mad because I am a human being, the same as you, the same as everybody. I have the same blood flowing through my veins. I feel the same pain when I'm sick, and a rope around my neck produces the same burning flesh as it would to you. Only my skin is different, and that I have not created. Why then haven't I got a right to live in peace and freedom? Why have you chosen to persecute me?
Who among us can answer this man? Who among us can justify his burden or contradict his cry for justice? Who can say that he is wrong and those who are responsible for his condition right? Those of us who can, let us step forward and take our place in our exalted company with Herod, Pontius Pilate, Caligula, Nero, Ivan the Terrible, Torquemada, and Hitler. We come now to the second group of scapegoats in our midst.
Kill the Jews! They're the ones who crucified Christ! They're the ones who own all the land, grab all the money, cause all the trouble! Kill them, I say!
This is an incident that has occurred and recurred 1,000 times in the last 1,000 years. Listen now to the list of crimes perpetrated by the people of the world against the world's favorite scapegoat. Listen to the words of the wandering Jew.
In 70 A.D., we were evicted from our homeland by the Romans. In the Middle Ages, we were forbidden to own land and assigned to ghettos, walled enclosures kept locked at night. In 1290, we were expelled from England. In 1350, we were accused of responsibility for the bubonic plague. In the day of the Russian Tsars, the armies incited outbreaks against the Jews known as pogroms, systematic house-to-house searches, beatings, and massacres. And with the advent of National Socialism in Germany, we have been subjected to a degree of cruelty unmatched in human misery. Why? What reason was there for this persecution? What reason exists today? If you know the answer, step forward and speak, and tell us what truth existed in the accusation.
The Jews were responsible for the bubonic plague.
What financial and economic proof backed up the accusation?
The Jews were responsible for the depression that followed the Napoleonic Wars.
What evidence was ever given to substantiate the charge?
The Jews perform ritual murders.
What logic exists behind the statement?
America is controlled by Jewish international bankers.
What reason is there for this hate? What purpose does it serve? What has it accomplished? Who has reaped the benefits, and why?
What answer shall we give this man? Shall we tell him that these charges were and still are deliberate falsehoods, invented by purveyors of hate to suit their ends? Shall we tell him that his persecution and the persecution of his race was inspired by these purveyors of hate to give the gullible and the bigoted among us a scapegoat for our economic and social ills? Shall we tell him that the babe in the manger was a Jew himself, and when we persecute the Jews, we also persecute him we come to worship tonight? But this man knows all that. He has known that for over 1,000 years. No, we cannot answer him. Nor can we answer those many others who have felt the whip of bigotry from us. The Italians looked down upon in many cities, and the Negroes, and the Catholics, and the Mexicans, and the Chinese, and the millions of other scapegoats, standing even now at the tribunals of bigotry we have erected for them. We can only hope and pray for a day when the truth will prevail, when the people of the world will learn that bigotry and persecution were the very things Jesus died to destroy. I have no advice to add, no plea to make. For tolerance and justice and a passion for truth and a spirit of brotherhood must come to each man from his heart, from his own understanding of the facts. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they who do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Tonight on Words at War, we've brought you a play in the Christmas spirit, based on Kenneth Gould's pamphlet, Scapegoats in History, and the History of Bigotry in the United States by Gustavus Myers, and featuring Bernard Lenrow as the narrator. The radio dramatization was written by Ben Kagan. The music was arranged and played by William Meader, and the production was under the direction of Garnet Garrison. This is the National Broadcasting Company.